Today we're going to be covering the first wildcard video of this season for FPL, ahead of Game Week 3, which always tends to be a very popular time to wildcard, and there will be some special circumstances with some people having multiple injuries and a lot of issues they need to deal with. But I think the vast majority of people watching will have a solid team, and you don't need to use the wildcard just yet. As early as Game Week 3, I would give your assets and even some of your bad choices so far a bit more time to prove themselves before ultimately pulling the trigger. I'll be looking to use it maybe from Game Week 7 onwards, but things can change very quickly, of course, and I do recognise that every situation is different despite the template being so strong. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button, subscribe for new. We are only around 70 subscribers away from 19,000, so let's keep on pushing towards that milestone and many more in the future. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. Despite Man United conceding 4 big chances in the opening 2 games and an expected goals conceded figure of 3.58, I still think Onana is one of the best goalkeeper options in the game because of saves and bonus points potential, and I would expect him to be right up there in terms of points scored amongst FPL goalkeepers. The second choice here is Areola, but you could go for him or Turner in terms of 4 million options. It's completely up to you, and I think both will do fine. But I've seen a few comments asking me, should I go for a double up of Turner and Areola as my goalkeepers? My answer would be no, because I don't really back the likes of West Ham and Nottingham Forest to keep enough clean sheets for that rotation to really work out for you. Even if the fixtures do coincide from time to time, I don't ultimately think it's worth it, and I would rather go for more proven and reliable options like Flecken at 4.5 million, Onana at 5 million, and if you really want to, you can go for an Edison, just because Man City should keep the most clean sheets in this Premier League season. But I've gone for Onana in goal. Let me know if you disagree. There are a few decent alternatives as well, even Leno, but for me, Onana and Flecken are the 2 best options. William Saliba accumulated 8 points in Game Week 2 against Crystal Palace with 2 bonus points, a clean sheet, and also in Game Week 1 he got an assist against Nottingham Forest. And it is a bit unfortunate those that went for Gabriel, because I didn't really see too much of a difference between Saliba and Gabriel, and if anything I saw Gabriel as more nailed on, which has been the case in the past. But this season Arsenal look like they're going to change things up a little bit depending on the opponent. I would still expect Gabriel to come back into the side, especially with Tomiyasu suspended as things stand, Jurriën Timber facing multiple months out with an injury, but Saliba looks like the best Arsenal defender at this moment in time. There's no shadow of a doubt about that. In terms of the other defenders, Rico Henry is my favourite amongst the 4.5 million options, but some of you may want to double up and just defensively with Sanchez in goal, or going for Colwill / Gusto as your second defender. And I actually don't mind Gusto as a 4 million option, but just don't expect the same level of returns as you would with a Reece James just because they play in the same position. I have to say though that Gusto was fairly impressive, because in terms of the bonus points, he was in the top 5 in the system despite conceding twice whilst he was on the pitch. So Gusto could be a decent 4 million option with those fixtures, but I still prefer Rico Henry. I think we'll get more points from now up until the end of the season for sure, and definitely over the next 5 or 6 game weeks, but let's see how things pan out. And I think one Chelsea defender is enough, and Ben Chilwell has the attacking potential. Despite conceding 3 times to West Ham, I still think Chilwell had a fairly impressive performance from an attacking perspective. And as for Pervis Estupiñán, despite Brighton having a torrid set of fixtures up until Game Week 9, I still think Estupiñán is one of the very best defenders in the game, with the goals, assist potential, the bonus points, the clean sheets, all of that. And I would still go for 1 or 2 Brighton players on the wildcard, and Estupiñán might still be the best defender in the game. And the last defender is Akanji. I would be tempted to stay clear from Man City defenders due to Pep Roulette, and Akanji isn't safe by any stretch of the imagination, but looking back from last season in all competitions, Akanji played the vast majority of games when available, and the last time he was benched was against West Ham, I believe, in a home fixture last season. And apart from that, every other game he started playing 90 minutes, playing as a left back, centre back, right back, you name it. He's so versatile, and he has been a hidden gem for Man City, being signed for around 15 to 20 million. So I think he could be a really good acquisition for your FPL team as well. He even got a bonus point in Game Week 2 against Newcastle. potential. And the other nailed-on defenders, so to speak, would include Ruben Dias and Vardiol. I think those two and Akanji could be the top three Man City defenders, but it's so difficult to rank them. I don't think they'll get many attacking returns or bonus points like an Estupinian will, but I think the clean sheets are there, and hopefully, if the likes of Akanji are benched from time to time, they don't come on. But if we do look at last season, when Akanji was benched, he tended to come on, and that was a big negative. With the likes of John Stones, who has rotated more often, at least he doesn't come on as a substitute and gives you a one-pointer as often as Akanji does. So this is certainly not going to be a perfect pick, and it will be risky, but I think one of Akanji, Gavardiol, or Ruben Dias could be a fantastic acquisition for your teams. And with those fixtures, Man City's defensive record, I think they could offer tremendous value at 5 to 5.5 million. The midfield was the toughest part of this team to assemble, there's no doubt about that, and there are so many honourable mentions and great choices that deserved an inclusion into this squad, but you just can't fit everybody in. I have gone for Mbeumo, who's the highest scoring midfielder at this moment in time. He got a 16 points in Game Week 2, and in my personal opinion, I think the 2 penalties he's gotten so far this season have been very soft, and they probably shouldn't have been awarded, but that is the beauty of having penalty takers in your FPL teams. They score them, no questions asked, you enjoy their points, and the only downside is if they miss them, like Mohamed Salah did in Game Week 2. But Mbeumo is certainly a fantastic option at 6.6 million now, and last season in Ivan Toney's absence, he had a terrific record, and he is carrying that on into this season. I wasn't that impressed by his antics during the summer in pre-season. He only scored 1 goal, which was from a penalty, but he has still kicked things up, and he's getting the points when it really matters in Game Weeks 1 and 2. Let's see how he does from now until the end of the season. I actually don't really rate his prospects in Game Week 3 so much against Crystal Palace. I think it could be a low-scoring game, but Mbeumo is a long-term acquisition, and he will certainly do the job for you in the next 5 to 10 game weeks. Then we move on to Bukayo Saka, and it's so difficult to separate him, Martinelli, and Odegaard. And against Crystal Palace, it was Martin Odegaard stepping up to take it, and he actually spoke about this after the game, and he said he asked Bukayo Saka if he could take it because during pre-season, Odegaard was scoring all the penalties in the Community Shield final as well. He was first to step up, and he took his penalty very well, and Saka accepted. So it still seems like Saka is the first choice penalty taker, but with Odegaard showing such form from the penalty spot, he could maybe take them temporarily, and that could be a situation to monitor over the next few weeks. But I still like Saka from open play. It's a bit of a shame he didn't take that penalty, but there you go. And Arsenal have plenty of good penalty takers in their ranks. Mitoma is a very interesting one because the fixtures are awful until Game Week 9, but when you look at some of them and break them down, he can still do well against Newcastle. But more specifically, I'm looking at fixtures like Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Man United, and Mitoma can certainly do well against all of them. And the main reason why I've included him is because Brighton have scored 8 goals, which is the most of any Premier League club so far. They're top of the Premier League table, and it's very difficult to go without a Brighton attacker, despite the poor fixtures. I've also gone for James Maddison. Keep an eye out for his situation. He has a bit of an ankle injury, I believe, and he did wear a protective boot following the Man United victory last Saturday, but he was actually quite confident. He told journalists that he should be fine and it's just a precaution, and you can only take what players say about their own injuries with a pinch of salt. It's all down to the doctors and their analysis, but I would expect Maddison to be back. Just bear in mind that he does pick up a lot of injury problems like he did last season and over his Leicester career, which does break his rhythm a little bit, but I like the fixture for Spurs, and Maddison has been very impressive in the first 2 game weeks, so I would still highly recommend him. But unfortunately, there are some big names left out, like Luis Diaz, Martinelli, Mohamed Salah. I would love to include all of them into this team, even Martin Odegaard, but you just can't do so. And the final midfielder is Phil Foden, who is someone I don't have a great history with in FPL. Whenever I get him in, he tends to be a bit of a troll. But with those fixtures, his top-class performance against Newcastle in Game Week 2, the bonus points potential, the injuries Man City have, the players they've sold like Gundogan and Mahrez, that has opened the door a little bit to Foden. And this is his best chance throughout his Man City career to nail down a spot and hopefully build some consistency and become a genuine FPL option. Other than the obvious man up front, I think there are 4 or 5 genuine quality FPL options at our disposal to have as your second striker, and that's why you can still consider a front three. But I would just recommend, in terms of having 5 midfielders and 3 attackers, you're going to have to bench one of them every single week, and that could lead to some huge benching dilemmas. So we're going to actually go to FPL.team very soon, show you the starting 11 for Gameweek 3 and all of the benching headaches we have with this 50-man squad. And imagine if I use the money in the bank, which is 3.6 million, to upgrade Semenyo to an Ollie Watkins, you are just going to have absolute benching headaches every single week, and you're going to ultimately leave points on your bench and be very frustrated. So I always make it a point in the rating your teams videos about being careful about not having a fully stacked 50-man squad where you're pretty much going to be just contemplating every single decision and player, and ultimately you're going to be frustrated by the end. I have gone for Jackson. He's got some fantastic fixtures, and his expected goals figure in the first 2 game weeks is around 1.34, so really impressive stuff by him. But 2 1-pointers with 2 yellow cards, that's something you're going to be hoping that he eradicates from his game. But I think the goals will come with these fixtures. Despite the Chelsea number 9 curse, you could argue, I still think Jackson will deliver. Having said that, the likes of Ollie Watkins, I think, are more reliable in the long term, and with the Jackson pick, it's mainly targeting those fixtures. So if you want someone reliable and maybe not many questions asked, Ollie Watkins is probably the guy. You've also got Wissa, who's doing extremely well, but I think a double up in Brentford is the sweet spot. I don't think I'd triple up necessarily. It's not a bad thing. It's just my own personal taste in that matter. And I think Alvarez could actually be the second best striker in the game. But we have gone for Akanji, Foden and Erling Haaland, so there's no spot there for the Argentine just yet. But he is another terrific option around 6.5 million, and I would expect his price to rise very soon. As for Semenyo, we have to mention he's a 4.5 million forward, and he's gotten returns in both game weeks so far, coming off the bench in game week 1, delivering and also scoring against Liverpool to put Bournemouth ahead at Anfield. So really impressive stuff by him. If you are looking for a 4.5 million forward, Semenyo is the best of the lot at the moment, followed by Osula and Mubama, but it looks like the Bournemouth striker is the best of the lot. And as for Erling Haaland, we all know what we have to expect from him. Very disappointing in the UEFA Super Cup final against Sevilla and also against Newcastle in Game Week 2. But he's facing Sheffield United next. I'd probably captain him, and I would have no doubts about including him in my FPL team. We are now using FPL.team, a free resource where you can preview your team in future game weeks and look to tinker with different transfer plans, different chip strategies, and it is really impressive stuff. As you can see, and as I discussed earlier, I've got 3.6 million in the bank. You can use it to upgrade Semenyo to Ollie Watkins, but let's actually put into context. If I were to do that, just look at the benching headaches. You've got Watkins here, away to Burnley, Rico Henry at home to Crystal Palace, and Saliba at home to Fulham. Who are you going to bench? It's literally just constant benching headaches, and I wouldn't mind having some money in the bank which you can use in the future to upgrade certain players and maybe build up to a Mohamed Salah in the future once the fixtures turn for good for Liverpool. They are facing Newcastle next, and that's why I haven't included a few players like Diaz and Salah. But fixtures aren't everything, because if they were, then why do I have Estupinian and Mitoma? It's always about striking that balance and going for what you think is the right thing in the long term as well, especially with a wild card, which is the most powerful chip of them all. Pretty much every single chip, if you think about it, is short term. The free hit is for 1 game week, the bench boost as well, the triple captain. The wild card is not just for 1 game week to deliver in game week 3. It's about the medium to long term and setting yourself up for the rest of the season. Of course, you do get 1 wild card for each half of the season, but it's such a long-term tool, and I wouldn't just waste it because you haven't done as well as you thought in the first 2 game weeks, or reacting and trying to hone in all of these fantastic players who are delivering so well up until this point. And it's just worth remembering that if you can, try to be patient, give your options time to breathe, and also, you never know, maybe some of your original picks start to do very well and bloom late on into the season. But I would probably just stick with that 4.5 million forward at least, and if not, you can go for a 4 million defender like Kabore or Bell, Baldock, etc. instead of Rico Henry. But just be careful about having too much squad depth. That would be one advice I would give you. It's just a personal take as well, and everyone's different. But with those I know who have a 50-man squad that's fully stacked, I always see them complaining about bench points, and I just don't think it's ultimately worth it. Now, with the starting 11 you see on screen, I've gone for Onana at home to Nottingham Forest. I would back Man United for the clean sheet. I've also gone for a back three of Akanji, Chilwell and Estupiñán, a midfield five of Saka, Mbeumo, Maddison, Foden and Mitoma, and a front two of Haaland and Jackson. And the bench is fairly decent with Areola, Saliba, Henry and Semenyo. And to be fair, you could start any single one of those players, particularly Saliba and Rico Henry, but you are going to have benching headaches with this team, unfortunately, and that will only be exacerbated if you use the money in the bank to upgrade your 4.5 million forward. Let me know what you think of this wildcard team. It isn't perfect. Maddison is currently flagged with an injury, so I would just be cautious. He's not a locked-in player in this team. Phil Foden is still a bit of a rotation risk, and I would argue Akanji is as well. Estupiñán and Mitoma have some poor fixtures, so bear that in mind. If you are more of a fixtures person over form, then instead of Mitoma, you can consider still a Marcus Rashford. He is not suddenly a bad FPL option. The same goes for Bruno Fernandes, Odegaard, Martinelli, Luis Diaz. There are plenty of household names who haven't featured, who definitely deserve a mention. Mohamed Salah, of course, being one of the best players in Premier League history. And apart from that, even Mbeumo, who I like a lot in the long term, he is not necessarily the best pick in Game Week 3 in my opinion, although I could be wrong if he gets another penalty. In terms of the captaincy, I would go for Erling Haaland here, with Bukayo Saka as the vice, facing a Fulham side who are leaking in opportunities left, right and centre. So I have to say, a very solid squad, but there are definitely some things you can improve, and it's all down to personal taste. And I would definitely recommend you maybe following this kind of template if you're wildcarding, but also adding some of your own players and choices in there to give it your own personal taste and style. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Like I said, we're only 70 subscribers away from 19,000, so let's try to get to that milestone as soon as possible, perhaps by the end of this week. It's definitely possible. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. Be sure to share this video around with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy, which is now live, and there's going to be more content for that fantasy game very, very soon. And all the links are in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and also Draft Time, which I'd highly recommend to optimize your FPL team. I wish you all the best luck for Game Week 3, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the season. I'll see you next time.